What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'll be taking you guys through a continuation of the best team series. So if you guys are new to this channel, new to this series, what we do is we cover two teams in this video. The first scenario, the first team, is going to revolve around the top 1000 managers and the template team of that specific collection. So what that means is that I'll be taking a look at the template team, which is basically the team that has the highest ownership amongst the top 1000 managers in the overall rankings at the current moment. So this gives us a nice little depiction of, if you actually want to get that high in the ranks, what team do we actually need, and also gives us a little bit of a comparison. We can look at our own specific team and look at their team and see where the differences lie. Are we going to correct those differences? Are we going to keep those differentials? That can be up to you. Then moving on to the second team, and this one's going to specifically relate to the upcoming game week, game week 4. What I do is I go over to fantasyfootballfix.com and I basically use their assistant manager to give me the best team that's predicted to score the most points for one specific game week, which is going to be game week 4. So you can think of this, if you were going to use a free hit, for example, this is going to be the team that you probably should be rocking. And then also what we can do with this is that if you're on a wild card, I just want to look for some 1 week punts. This also becomes quite useful because it's a very short term kind of a vision of FPL, but it does give us a good indication of which players are potentially going to score the most points in the upcoming game week. You guys have been enjoying this series, so hopefully you do also enjoy this episode. And with that being said, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So yet again, we're going to be going over this international break. Just seems to never be ending. A little bit of a disclaimer here. I'm recording this on Tuesday evening. Unfortunately, YouTube has a little bit of an error right now with kind of processing its HD versions. So that's why this week I've actually been releasing videos a little bit earlier because I have been pre-recording them. So just bear with me here about potential news that has broken. I'm going to be giving you guys as much up-to-date news as possible, and then maybe just wait for the next day's video if news has broke the previous day. Obviously, in the deadline stream coming up on Saturday, we will be covering the most up-to-date news as possible, so don't worry, I'm not going to leave you guys in the dark. It's simply just because there's a little bit of an error on YouTube. I'm having to pre-record the videos to just get the content out ASAP. But going over the current international news from yesterday's Ultimate Guide video, go check that out if you didn't. I don't have much news about potential bans for these options, but I do have a lot of news about potential injuries. So the big injury today was to Heung-min Son. Picked up a little bit of a minor calf injury over a friendly, I think he was playing with South Korea. So it's a little bit unfortunate if you guys are an owner, but if I was to bring him in, I'd definitely be waiting for an update from Nuno Santos in that press conference coming up either Thursday or Friday. Just one of an example of the many injuries that's actually taken place over this international break. So please keep that in mind when you guys are making transfers. Just make sure whatever source you guys are using, if it's news, if it's going to be Twitter, just make sure that it is verified and confirmed before making those moves, because last thing you want to do is bring in an injured player and that forces your hand into a wild card. Other notable potential injuries have been to Romelu Lukaku. It seems like he also had a little bit of a minor thigh injury. However, just wait to see what Tuchel says in his press conference as well. Basically, the general consensus is just wait until those press conferences to make those news, because the fixtures haven't ended yet. We still do have probably England playing as you guys are watching this video, or maybe a little bit later on into the evening. But England still play. A large majority of the European nations play. We have the South American nonsense that's been going on with kind of Brazil and Argentina. I don't know if they're going to play any more kind of South American qualifiers. Maybe they will, but I think these games kind of stretch into early Thursday morning. So just keep up to date with the international news, and then you'll be absolutely perfectly fine going into that game week 4 deadline. So the first team, as I mentioned in the introduction, is going to be the template team of the top 1000 managers. So this is kind of the pinnacle of the overall rankings at the current moment. If you're in the top 1000, doing remarkably well this FPL season, and hopefully you guys, if you are there, can hopefully stick there for the foreseeable future. Going on to this team, you'll notice that there are some positions that sometimes rotate. That's why the bench does look a little bit strange. However, generally the bench does kind of reflect what most of us go for, a really cheap bench with the most money in the starting 11. So starting off on the bench there, we've got Steer. I don't really know how he kind of fits in here, although his ownership is only 1.7%. Maybe it's just because he's quite cheap, but I really think that maybe a Ben Foster would have been more highly owned, but maybe not. And then we go on to some players like a Tsimikas. We also have Brownhill, and then finally, we also have Duffy. So cheap options on the bench, and you'll notice in the defense, there's a lot of cheap options to go for, and that's because these players are highly owned, as you probably own one or the other. So for example, a lot of us own Tsimikas right now, probably another 4.0, such as a Marty or a Duffy or Omabad Madeli. But in the upcoming game weeks, I think we will see a switch to a more premium defense, and we'll get rid of these cheap options once they've lost their place. Going on to the starting 11 and going on to the goalkeeper, if you guys do remember last week, we actually had quite a little bit of a 50-50 split here between Sanchez and Schmeichel. But no, what's happened here, we have a massive rise in Sanchez ownership within the top 1,000 managers. Currently 81.5% of the top 1,000 do own Robert Sanchez from Brighton, a massive ownership there. But what you'll also notice in terms of kind of the ownership is a large majority of these players are owned by about 80% to 90% of the top 1,000, and that kind of shows you that the top 1,000 managers right now, there's not a lot of variance between them and not a lot of variance in FPL as a whole. So I would be really patient in terms of the overall rankings. Don't really judge your season on your rank currently. As I always say, about game week 10 is when you can realistically look at your overall rank and decide whether you need to do something maverick or whether you can just stick with your strategy and boost up as you please. Going on to the rest of the defense, as I mentioned, the budget options rotate quite easily here. I did include a Marty in my starting 11, although he probably won't start like most of the 4.0 defenders. The only one I think for the short term that is probably nailed is going to be Duffy from Brighton. So Marty is going to be in our starting 11, and I put Tsimikas on the bench because obviously with Robertson back from that injury, I don't think Tsimikas is going to be getting too many minutes, and if you do own him, you might want to take him out. And that's kind of the thing about a Marty and Tsimikas. Who would you rather take out? I personally think that it's going to be Tsimikas first, because I think a Liverpool triple up is a lot more valuable at the current moment than a Leicester triple up. So for my own personal team, that's something that I'm considering, taking Tsimikas out so that I can bring Diego Jota in, but that is reliant on the news of Roberto Firmino, and if he's going to be out for a prolonged amount of time, Tsimikas will be on the way out and Jota will be on the way in. The last kind of two defenders to talk about are super template. It's going to be Luke Shaw and Trent Alexander-Arnold, two defenders that most managers started off the FPL season with, but it just shows you that these are two template defenders, but if the top 1,000 has them and they have them both, it just shows you that these two players have been returning, and that's a little bit of a pat on the back for the FPL community, because if these players are template and they're returning, it does show you that that kind of logic and that research really did pay off. It's going to be quite interesting to see how this shakes up in the next couple game weeks, because I think right now we have a very strong template, but we currently do have some tough fixtures coming up for these template players, and we have teams like Chelsea, Wolves, who are going to shake things up, I think, with those lovely sea of green fixtures as we've seen in the Ultimate Guide. Going on to the midfield, we have four players here that have all been returning well. The one that you're probably going to be drawn to is that high ownership of Ben Rama. 94.9% of the top 1,000 own him, and that just shows you how well of a performer he's been in FPL at the current moment. Guess which game week I managed to bring him in? Yes, game week 3 when he returned 2 points, so I was quite disappointed with that. So I'm just hoping that I haven't broken Ben Rama, and I'm pretty sure the top 1,000 managers are also hoping I didn't, and in game week 4 against Southampton, he can put on a good show and return to those double-digit hauls. Bruno Fernandes, Mo Salah, two really premium template options. Most players generally started with them at the beginning of the season, but that's going to completely shake up now with the reintroduction of Cristiano Ronaldo back into that United side. I think a lot of people are going to drop Bruno and bring Ronaldo in, so I think that's going to shake up the top 1,000 template even more. Mo Salah won't be going anywhere. I think with some nice upcoming Liverpool fixtures, I don't think there's any reason to take out the Egyptian international at all, and I think he even could be a nice captaincy option in the upcoming game weeks. The final player to talk about is going to be Greenwood, one of the more differential players in the top 1,000, currently owned by 70% of people, so still highly owned, but not as highly owned as these other options. And I'm just kind of hoping that even though Ronaldo's back in that starting 11, potentially against Newcastle, Greenwood can still find a place amongst one of the wing positions. And that's just because he's been scoring so much. I don't think Oli can drop the only player that's scoring for United, so I really do hope that at least Greenwood's nailed for the next 3, because from game week 7 onwards, United's fixtures don't look great at all. Going on to the frontline department, we do have two kind of highly owned options of Danny Ings and Antonio. Nothing much to say about Antonio, just a beast in FPL at the current moment. I'm hoping that he can get to this international break injury free for Jamaica, and he's going to see some nice fixtures, especially in game week 4 against Southampton, where I'm hoping that he can continue this run of double-digit hauls. Danny Ings is definitely going to be a player that's on the way out for the majority of these managers, and I think you know who's going to come in. Yes, it's going to be CR7, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The final player to talk about is the one that I'm most worried about for my own personal team, and that's going to be Dominic Calvert-Lewin from Everton. Currently only owned by about 32% of the top 1,000, which just shows you that he's quite a differential amongst them, but he still has been quite a high performer. Currently injured with a toe injury, but he also was injured before game week 3, and he still managed to play, and I think he also ended up scoring in game week 3 for Everton. So I mean, just shows you, even though he is injured, I still think he'll probably be in that starting 11 come game week 4. So if you are an owner or you are a new owner, there's nothing much to worry about there. So this is the current top 1000 template team. Let me know what you think of it down below. Obviously, it's probably going to be quite good because if it is the top 1000, these players have been returning, and I'm pretty sure most of us are going to be looking to bring them in, but maybe we can go a little bit differential and catch up some of these points between us and them. So one thing that I just wanted to add to this video, because I wanted to give a little bit of prediction of what I think the top 1000 will do, as that always is quite helpful in FPL to kind of predict the moves of your rivals. And I think the top 1000, if you're not in it, that's a rival for all of us. So in terms of the transfers that I think most of these managers will be making, I think the large majority of them will have 2 free transfers in the bank, and that's going to be a simple no-brainer. It's going to be Danny Ings out, it's going to be Bruno Fernandes out, and it's going to be Cristiano Ronaldo and a 7.5. Some of these managers might have more money in the bank, so I think probably the move that I would predict if they didn't have a Liverpool triple up already would be Cristiano Ronaldo and Diego Jota in, or it could be someone like a Ferran Torres as well. So anyone below kind of 7.5 is a fair game. Could even see some Traores there for the more maverick managers, but you guys just have to know that Ronaldo is going to be coming in for the large majority of these high rank managers. So if you're going to go without him, just make sure that he doesn't end up banging. So now going on to the second part of this video, or the second team of this video, and that's going to be the best predicted team as predicted by the fantasyfootballfix.com algorithm. So what I did was I just went over to the assistant manager, sorted for one single game week, dropped that to kind of bench slider right down to 0%. You guys know me, on these teams I always like to have as little money on the bench as physically possible. That's exactly what this team's about. Just look at that bench. Foster, Allen, Tsimikas and Scarlett all there. I don't think the majority of these players will start unless it is Allen for Everton, but in terms of his starts, I think the most you're probably going to get out of him is going to be a 3-point appearance. So now we'll be done with the boring bench. Going to talk about the starting 11, and the Fantasy Football Fix is predicting that a 4-4-2 formation is going to come out trumps, specifically for game week 4. Starting off in goal, we've got a double up in the defense of Dyer and also Lloris, coming in with a nice fixture against Crystal Palace. It is an away fixture, and Crystal Palace have been a little bit hit or miss. We saw them against West Ham, a team that I consider to be quite defensively assured, kind of conceding 2 goals to Crystal Palace. So maybe your Spurs options might be a little bit shaky there, but I do think in terms of the clean sheets that they've kept at the start of this Premier League season have been quite good, so I'm expecting them to keep up that form against Crystal Palace. So Dyer, Lloris, not much kind of attacking threat there, but I do think a player like a Reguilon was maybe a little bit too expensive considering we have quite a few premiums in the selection. Going on to the rest of the defense, we also have a double up. We have kind of a North London defense here, so double up with those Arsenal assets of Ben White and Kieran Tierney. As far as I know, Tierney has recovered from that injury, so you guys don't really have to worry about that. And then also Ben White has also recovered, so there was pictures of him training today with the Arsenal squad, so not much to worry about there. Does come in quite cheap at I think 4.3, had some price drops since the start of the season. And in terms of those Arsenal fixtures, great fixtures coming up, so if you guys want to take a punt, even though they aren't in the best of form, I do think they could be valuable assets in the upcoming game weeks. The final play to talk about in the defense is going to be Luke Shaw. A comfortable game for that United defense I'm currently predicting against Newcastle. It's going to be kind of Ronaldo's game back in front of that Old Trafford crowd. So I think it's going to be a good vibe. I think it's going to be a good attacking and defensive performance from United. So I'm expecting a clean sheet and a couple of goals. So Luke Shaw, 100% fine there. Does have that attacking threat as well with those crosses. And I mean, if I'm crossing to Ronaldo, I'm pretty sure he can score off one of mine. Now going on to the attacking department, starting off with the midfield, we do have Mo Salah here. A little bit of a no-brainer. One of the more essential premiums to own, especially with these nice upcoming fixtures, and the fix algorithm is predicting that Mo Salah will do potentially well against Leeds. Now, kind of analyzing this fixture has been a little bit tough for me, as Leeds can be one of these hit or miss sides. In terms of this season, they haven't been that great defensively, and I think that Liverpool will definitely score against them, and that's why I think Mo Salah should still be in your guys' lineups and might be a little bit of an underrated captain at this point. We then have 3 interesting additions here. You guys might not be saying Fernandes is too interesting, to be honest, but I think kind of doubling up with Fernandes and Ronaldo is definitely interesting in my eyes. I don't really think many managers are actually doing this, so if you guys want to go for it, I can understand it, but I don't really think with these upcoming United fixtures that I would personally do it. But maybe if you are taking a 1-week punt using a free hit, this could definitely be one of those opportunities to kind of one-up your opponents, because not many managers will be doing this. The next two options are interesting in terms of differential aspects. We've got Ismaila Sarr from Watford and then also Nicolas Pepe from Arsenal. So kind of continuing on this trend of Arsenal assets, I think this is just simply down to one reason. They're playing Norwich, and it's going to be a nice bottom of the table clash there. Kind of a derby at this point between Arsenal and Norwich at the foot of the table. But I definitely think that Arsenal will come out trumps here, and I am expecting quite a good performance from them. I don't really know the current Arsenal lineup, but if Pepe is going to start, could be in line for quite a nice haul there. If you are an Aubameyang owner, I don't really know why, but he could also be maybe a differential captain to go for. But it is interesting to see that the fixed algorithm is predicting quite a good score for Arsenal against Norwich. Ismaila Sarr, I don't really know how I feel about him, because I think that Wolves in my eyes have been quite defensively assured, but maybe the stats in the background stats are showing that maybe Wolves are a little bit more susceptible to maybe an attack than we are expecting, and that's why maybe the pace of Ismaila Sarr can get in behind that Wolves defense and potentially get some returns. So maybe a cheap option to kind of look at. I definitely wasn't looking at him. I'm kind of drawn to an Adama Traore at this point because he just looks so good going forward, and this Wolves fixture just looks so good as well. Going on to the front line, I'm kind of labeling this the no-brainer front line. Antonio is a no-brainer. Ronaldo, if he starts, is a no-brainer, and that's just kind of the thing that we have to look out for. He has trained today as far as I know, which is going to be Tuesday, so I think that's plenty of enough time to kind of train with the United squad to be ready to go on the weekend. And I mean, it is a home fixture, so I reckon the press are going to be all over this kind of news, and I'm pretty sure we'll be getting news if Ronaldo's going to start or if he won't. But if you guys were to predict which team would score the most points, or at least which player is predicted to score the most points, who would you pick? Drop it down in the comments below and let's get a little bit of a conversation going. But this is basically a wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow for the team selection, where I do potentially make 3 or 4 transfers as I look to bring in the one and only, the Portuguese striker himself, Cristiano Ronaldo. So stay tuned for that, and as I said, hopefully you did enjoy this video. I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.